It's a Luigi time. Okay, sorry. Let me finish talking about learning through words and Aristotle. Then I want to transition over to talking about David Hume and talk about the concepts, right? Where do the ideas come from? Already in our reading, in our walk through how to know things, we're distinguishing between words and objects, right? Words and physical things. Now, words technically are physical things, aren't they? Words are either written, right? Marks on some with some medium on some surface, or they're going to be spoken, right? They're going to be certain patterns of sound. Anyway, so words are attempting to use reality to describe reality. They're attempting to signal ideas. Ideas, for Plato and Aristotle, are not physical. Ideas are intelligible, right? They're not the world that we can sense. They're the world that we can think about, the world that we can intellect. Perfect circles, Plato will tell you, don't exist, except as intelligible things, not as physical things. After all, right, a perfect circle, all right, the definition of a circle, right, is a series of contiguous points equidistant from a central point on a plane, right? So, points, they don't have any thickness. If there were a perfect circle, you couldn't see it, right? No thickness. Perfect. I've had students try to convince me that black holes are perfect circles. Wouldn't they have to be static? Wouldn't they have to be completely unchanging? Anyway, okay, so Aristotle's helpful. We're trying to figure out how to come to truth, right? If we've got the meaning of words down, we've already seen that grammar can tell us how to put words together into sentences, and then logic can help tell us how to put sentences together into arguments that preserve truth, so that if the premises are true, the conclusion comes out true, so we can get more truth that way. But this all depends on how the words link up to the reality we want to know about. Now, for Aristotle, really important. One of the things that Aristotle does, that kind of the stereotypical thing people do when they're kind of mimicking Aristotle's style, is to say that blank is said in many ways. Being is said in many ways, for instance. Being, right, is a category that we apply to all things that be. Well, you know, I've got my... Can I turn this around? I got my cat. This is not working. Got my cat over here sitting in a sunbeam. Cheerio. Cheerio is, right? Being. This is a thing that is at this time. Cheerio is a gray cat, a dust kitty. Gray also exists. Gray is. But gray, the color, right, doesn't exist the same way that Cheerio the cat exists. When I say that gray is a color, gray is, and when I say that Cheerio is a cat, Cheerio is doesn't quite mean the same thing there. Now, what about when I say that justice is, justice exists, or doesn't exist, right? Justice should exist. There is such a thing as to be just. And if there is such a thing as to be just, surely there's such a thing as justice itself. But the way we use the word justice, right, there could be more than one thing that is justice. So for Aristotle, I mean also for Plato, but we need to be very careful with the homonymy, with the multiple senses that our terms have, all right? So when we're dealing with a natural language, we're going to be real careful to make sure that we get all the homonymy out of here, right? All the multiple senses, all the multiple meanings. After all, the truth of a sentence like Cheerio is sitting in a sunbeam is going to... He still has to play. It's going to depend on a few things. Hi, Cheerio. He doesn't talk very loudly. What a cutie. The truth of Cheerio is sitting in a sunbeam depends on the context, right? Depends on what we mean by these things. What a sweet cat. He likes to play. Bachelors are unmarried. This is an example I use a lot in class. Bachelors are unmarried. True, right? But we do got to be careful, don't we, with the homonymy, the multiple senses. I've watched The Bachelor a bit. I know that some of the bachelors are still married. Not very many. Cheerio, you're being too rough. Some of the bachelors are still married. So if I said that all bachelors are unmarried, we do have to be a little careful of the multiple senses that bachelor can have. When I say being, when I talk about being, for instance, the property of existing, I do have to be careful about the multiple senses because while justice exists is different than Cheerio exists. So I have to be careful about the senses of the terms there. So one of the tasks of the philosopher then is to get rid of this homonymy. Now, what one does is one gets very precise about one's definitions, right? When I need to take a natural language term like, what do I use, Cheerio? How about like just? And I need to distinguish the different senses. I mean, this in Plato. Hi, Cheerio, I'm gonna sit back down. In Plato, justice is a property that that modifies people. It's just people. It's a property that modifies societies, right? Just societies. I mean, there aren't any, but it's something to aim at. So there's at least what it is to be a just society. And then there's also justice itself, right? So there's multiple senses. In Aristotle, we need to be very precise. We need to come up with a definition. When we set out what we're talking about, we need to be very precise. Let me tell you how Hume approaches this real quick. There's a really great example regarding free will. Hume says the really weird thing that in this debate about freedom and determination, once we fix our terms and say what we mean by free and what we mean by determined, everyone's on the same page. The confusion, the debate is really entirely about how people fix the terms. And for Hume, we're free in the sense that we can introspect and see that we're in control of our actions, right? I'm doing what I want to be doing. And we're determined in the sense that I can't just do anything that I want to do. And there are reasons motivating me to do what I do. I never do something without reason. And the causes that dictate, what my situation is, and even what the actions are, they're not in my control. Okay, so there's a sense in which, we are determined, Hume's going to say, when we fix the terms right, we'll see the truth of that sentence. And we are free. When we fix the terms right, we'll see the truth of that sentence. So it's a matter of fixing our terms here, right? Now, what happens? What happens is we get multiple ways of laying language on top of the world to explain the world, to highlight certain key features of the world that we're seeing, right? We can describe the world this way. We could describe the world that way. We could talk about freedom, fixing the term this way. By free, I mean this. And then we ask, are we free? Yeah, we're free. Or by free, I mean this. And then we ask, are we free? No, we're not free. And the difference isn't necessarily how we're interpreting, it's not necessarily a difference in belief about what people are doing, what people are not doing. It's how we're defining this term. There's a sense in which it's true that we're free. There's a sense in which it's false that we're free. Let's get to the senses. Let's distinguish these senses. Let's fix this term. So what happens is that the language, the natural language, when you fix the definitions, becomes more like an artificial language. You stipulate, right? Instead of just using the natural language the way that we use the language. I'm free here and this. It's all fuzzy, right? Natural language is, we need to talk more about where it comes from, but I can't do that until we talk about the senses. So natural languages are messy. They're not going to get us truth in any kind of rigid sense, in any kind of I hate having to edit these things. In any kind of rigorous sense. What the natural languages do, right, of course, is allow us to communicate. Now, Plato says, well, let's not go there. Natural languages allow us to communicate. I want to talk about this eventually, all right? Natural languages allow us to communicate, to make our words into truths, into rigid truth. We gotta take that natural language and make it a little more like an artificial language, right? We gotta fix the definitions and say, I'm gonna define these this way, not that way.